My name is Jake Thompson. I'm 36 years old, living in Ohio, and for the last 12 years, I worked at my family's car dealership, a place where I grew up, learned the business, and thought I was more than just an employee. I was family. My older brother, Mike, and I had always been close, or at least, that's what I believed. But all that changed the day he officially became the owner of the dealership. It was a regular Thursday morning when Mike called me into his office. The kind of call that sounds harmless, but turns your world upside down. When I walked in, I noticed the cold look in his eyes, one I hadn't seen before. He didn't even stand up to greet me. Instead, he slid a letter across the desk. It was my termination notice. "Jake, I'm sorry. I have to do this. It's business now," he said without even looking me in the eye. I was stunned. Fired. Just like that. By my own brother. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I kept asking myself, how did it come to this? How did the person I trusted more than anyone become the one to throw me out like I was nothing? What Mike didn't know was that I wasn't broken. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. Because the truth was, I had just become something he could never have imagined. You see, this wasn't just a family feud or a business dispute. This was war. I was about to show him that getting the keys to a dealership didn't mean he had one. He fired me the moment he got the keys. But he had no idea what I was about to become. Cutting to the scene where I stand outside the dealership, my heart pounding, realizing this was just the beginning of a much bigger battle. I won't lie, that day I felt lost. The place where I had spent years of my life, my sweat, and my hopes, suddenly it was closed to me. And the man who was supposed to have my back had turned his back on me. But deep down, a fire was lit inside me. This story isn't just about betrayal or revenge. It's about survival. About rising from the ashes when everyone thinks you're finished. And it all started with that phone call and a simple piece of paper that changed everything. Before that cold day when Mike fired me, I thought I had everything figured out. The family dealership wasn't just a job to me. It was my identity, my pride, and my future. I grew up in that showroom, watching my dad hustle, sealing deals, fixing problems, and treating every customer like they were family. I learned the business from him, and when he retired, Mike took over as owner, while I stayed on managing operations. For years, Mike and I worked side by side. We weren't just brothers, we were partners. I handled the day-to-day grind, inventory, sales teams, finances. Mike dealt with big decisions, contracts, and the outside world. It was a perfect balance. At least, that's how it felt. I remember late nights in the office, laughing over dumb jokes, planning ways to grow the dealership, dreaming about expanding to new locations. Mike used to say, "We're building something that'll last generations." I believed him. Family dinners were always a highlight. We'd sit around the table, talk about the business, our dreams, and sometimes just laugh about old memories. Those moments made me feel like I was part of something bigger than myself. But beneath all that warmth, cracks were slowly forming. Mike's mood started shifting months before he took full ownership. He became distant, more secretive. Meetings that I used to be part of suddenly became private. Phone calls that once included me now ended abruptly when I walked in. It wasn't drastic at first, just little things that made me uncomfortable. I brushed it off, telling myself he was stressed, or maybe I was overthinking. After all, family comes first, right? but I should have listened to that gut feeling. The dealership's financial reports showed worrying trends, and Mike refused to share details. I noticed him spending more time with new people, slick investors, lawyers, people I didn't know or trust. One day, I overheard a conversation in the break room. Mike was talking about cutting costs and restructuring in ways that sounded ominous. I asked him directly later, but he just smiled and said, "Business changes, Jake. You'll understand soon enough." Those words haunted me, because soon enough I did. One warm summer evening, I was going through some paperwork when Mike called me into his office. That's when he handed me the termination letter and told me I was no longer part of the business. The word stung more than I expected. I thought we were family. I thought we had a bond stronger than any business deal. But I was wrong. I was blindsided by the very person I trusted most. I wasn't just losing a job. I was losing my identity, my place in the family, my future. But I didn't let that break me. No, it made me stronger. Looking back, I realized those red flags were there all along. The cold silences, the secret meetings, the distance growing between us. Mike had been planning this for months, and I was completely unaware. After Mike handed me that cold termination letter, I was shell-shocked, but I refused to react immediately. I had to stay calm, observe, and figure out what was really going on beneath the surface. At first, I told myself it was just business. Maybe he felt I wasn't pulling my weight, or that new investors wanted a fresh start. But the truth was deeper and darker than I ever imagined. In the days following my firing, I started noticing things that didn't add up. Mike's behavior was different, colder, more secretive. The dealership staff treated me differently too, some avoiding eye contact, others whispering when they thought I wasn't listening. One night, I stayed late at the office to pick up some personal stuff. The showroom was quiet, but the atmosphere felt heavy. My phone buzzed with a message from Mike. "Let's talk tomorrow." I ignored it. Instead, I began paying attention to small details. The way Mike's phone would light up in the middle of the night, the hushed conversations behind closed doors, the sudden unexplained expenses in the dealership's accounts. I knew something was brewing, but I had no proof yet. I kept my distance and observed silently. I watched Mike's every move, trying to understand his game. He was a master at hiding his intentions, smiling in public while plotting behind closed doors. One particular night changed everything. At exactly 2:07 a.m., Mike's phone lit up with a message. The notification popped on the screen, showing a text from an unknown number. He quickly silenced it and shoved the phone into his pocket. My heart raced. Why was he receiving messages at this hour? And who was this mysterious contact? That night, I stayed up, replaying moments in my head, connecting dots I hadn't noticed before. Why did he exclude me from important meetings? Why the secrecy? And most importantly, why did he fire me so suddenly? The silence between us was deafening. I said nothing, but inside, suspicion was growing into certainty. I wasn't going to let this slide. Mike had changed. And whatever he was planning, I knew it wouldn't be good for me, or for the dealership I had dedicated my life to. It was one ordinary Thursday evening, but it turned into the night that changed everything. I was going through some old dealership files at home when my phone buzzed. I glanced down and saw a message notification pop up from Mike's number, except it wasn't Mike who sent it. Curious and confused, I unlocked my phone and started scrolling through the messages. That's when I found it, the proof I'd been unknowingly waiting for. There was a thread between Mike and a woman I didn't recognize. At first, the text seemed innocent, just business talk, or so I thought. But then, it got personal. Messages like, "I can't wait to see you," and "When are you finally free?" jumped out. My heart sank. I felt like the ground beneath me gave way. But it wasn't just the affair that crushed me. There was another message, this one about the dealership. She wrote, "Don't worry about Jake. He's out. I made sure of it." I stared at those words in disbelief. Mike had not only fired me, he had plotted with this stranger to push me out, to take control for himself. I sat down heavily, trying to process what I'd just uncovered. The man I called brother had betrayed me in the worst possible way, not just personally, but professionally. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream. I felt cold. And in that cold, something inside me snapped. I realized this wasn't just about a family feud anymore. This was war. The man who once stood beside me, who shared my dreams and hopes, had turned into my greatest enemy. And if he thought I'd go down without a fight, he was about to find out just how wrong he was. I closed the message thread and stared out the window. The night was quiet, but inside, a storm was raging. This was my moment, the moment I decided I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to fight back. The days after that night were some of the most challenging in my life. But instead of spiraling into anger or despair, I made a conscious decision. I would respond with patience and precision. This wasn't a petty fight anymore. It was a battle for everything I'd worked for. I started by gathering evidence quietly, without letting Mike or anyone else suspect I was onto them. My first step was to secure the message thread I had discovered. I took screenshots, saved the files, and backed up every conversation. I needed solid proof, something undeniable. Next, I turned my attention to the dealership's records. I spent hours digging through files, invoices, bank statements, and emails, searching for any signs of mismanagement or fraud that might have been part of Mike's plan. It wasn't easy. Many things were hidden behind layers of bureaucracy, but my years of experience gave me an edge. Every night, I met with a lawyer friend I trusted, explaining the situation and strategizing the next moves. He warned me to be cautious. Mike had more resources, and a public battle could get messy. But I was ready for it. I told myself, I'm trained to win wars without raising my voice. The tension built with every passing day, but I kept my emotions in check. I avoided confrontations and kept my distance from Mike. To the outside world, I was the calm, broken brother, but inside, I was plotting a comeback. I also started documenting everything, from conversations with staff to suspicious activities at the dealership. I knew I'd need witnesses and detailed timelines when the time came. At work, I kept my relationships professional but distant. Some employees started whispering about my absence, but I stayed silent. I wasn't ready to reveal my hand yet. One evening, as I sat reviewing the documents, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an anonymous tip from someone inside the dealership, a piece of information that could turn the tide. The message read, Mike is planning to sell part of the business to cover his debts. Watch for the contract signing next week. That was the opening I needed. I shared the tip with my lawyer, and we began preparing to challenge any fraudulent deals Mike might push through. I was ready to take control, not with anger or shouting, but with facts, evidence, and the law on my side. Mike thought he'd won the day he fired me. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't just his brother. I was a fighter. And I was about to show him exactly what that meant. After weeks of quiet preparation, the day finally arrived. I was calm, collected, and ready to face Mike head-on. The courthouse was packed, buzzing with anticipation. News had spread quickly about the family feud that had spilled into the public eye. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, but I kept my focus steady. When the judge called the session to order, I stood up, feeling a strange mix of nerves and resolve. This was my moment to take back everything that had been stolen from me, not with anger, but with truth. My lawyer presented the evidence we gathered, the incriminating messages, financial records showing Mike's unauthorized decisions, and the contract he tried to sneak through to sell part of the business without my consent. Mike sat across from me, his face a mixture of disbelief and fury, but I remained silent. I let the facts speak for themselves. Then came the turning point. I played the audio recording of a private phone call Mike had made, in which he openly mocked me and admitted to orchestrating my firing to take control. The courtroom fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Mike's smirk vanished. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. It was clear the tide had turned. The ruling came swiftly. Mike was ordered to step down as owner, and the dealership's control was restored to me. The court mandated a full audit and imposed penalties for his mismanagement. As the gavel struck, I felt a wave of relief and vindication wash over me. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice and reclaiming my life. After the trial, I walked outside into the bright sunlight, breathing deeply. People I hadn't seen in months came up to shake my hand, some with tears in their eyes. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone. This battle had been hard, harder than anything I'd faced in my career or personal life, but I'd won because I refused to give up. Mike's betrayal had nearly broken me, but it also made me stronger. I looked at the dealership sign overhead, the same one my father had put up years ago, and felt pride. This was my family's legacy, and I'd fought to protect it. The courtroom battle was over, but the journey had just begun. Losing my brother's trust felt like a wound that wouldn't heal overnight. The pain of betrayal ran deep, cutting through years of shared memories and family ties. But with every sunrise, I reminded myself, this wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. The dealership wasn't just a business. It was a symbol of my family's hard work and dreams. Taking it back was more than a victory. It was a responsibility. I reconnected with loyal employees who stood by me, people who believed in the vision my brother had tried to destroy. Together, we worked tirelessly to restore the dealership's reputation and bring back the customers who drifted away. Outside of work, I started to heal emotionally. Therapy helped me unpack the hurt and rebuild my sense of self-worth. I learned that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about freeing myself from the chains of anger. One lesson stood out above all. Betrayal from those closest to us can either break us or make us stronger. I chose the latter. I discovered that real strength isn't about retaliation or revenge. It's about resilience, integrity, and rising above the pain. Sometimes, the hardest battles teach us the most important lessons. Today, my life is simpler but richer. I'm more cautious about who I trust, but also more open to love and hope. I've learned to value peace over pride, and to build bridges instead of burning them. As for Mike, We don't speak anymore. That chapter is closed. But I'm grateful for the fire he ignited inside me. Without it, I wouldn't have discovered what I'm truly capable of. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how dark the moment, you have the power to rise. Not for revenge. Not for anyone else. But for yourself. Because at the end of the day, the greatest victory is reclaiming your own soul. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like mine reach more people who need to hear them. Remember, your fight isn't over until you say it is. And you're stronger than you think.